It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. Plenty to talk about from the weekend that was, including the bloodbath that was my weekend. We'll get into that coming up. Bill Bender will stop by and talk some college football with us. That's coming up a little later on in the show. Get to the weekend in college football with him. But we start things out in the NFL, and Sam Yarnell is here. In spirit, anyway. He's having some voice issues. I want to make it clear to everybody he's having some voice issues. He is not going through a second puberty. Just wanted to make sure we put that out there. Sam, look, I just so happened. I should have grabbed the video of it because it's on X on my feed at the back page. I said, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna take video of this last play. I'm gonna videotape the screen and sort of react in real time, just in case something crazy happens. And then something crazy happens. For people who didn't see it, here it is.
So he's got it again. It's hurting. Touchdown to one last play. And it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line. And the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle! It's Noah Brown! Oh, my goodness! This town is going crazy. It's a madhouse in Landover, Maryland. He did it!
And all Tony Romo could say was, he did it! Can I be honest about something? I'm not a huge Jim Nantz fan. I don't hate him. I'm just kind of, he's just whatever to me. The time he didn't script a call was one of his best calls because it was just genuine enthusiasm. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't written down on a little note card. It was real, authentic enthusiasm. Put that out of the way for a second. What a crushing loss for as exhilarating a win as this, Sam, for the Washington Commanders. This is a crushing loss if you are Matt Eberflus and the Chicago Bears.
It's horrible, Jason. The Chicago Bears have a massive issue at the head coach position, and that was demonstrated throughout the game. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels duked it out like we thought they would until the very last whistle. Neither quarterback played in a tremendous game. Caleb Williams played bad for like the first 2.5 quarters. It was like halfway through the third quarter, and he finally felt like he got warmed up. This wasn't as good of a game as we thought it was going to be, but the last moment is going to make it one that we'll remember all season long. I cannot believe the cornerback or the defensive back for the Bears on that last play, talking smack to the Commanders fans, while Bears fans in the stands are pointing and saying, hey, the play's going on. You should probably pay attention. And ultimately, he was the guy who was supposed to be covering Noah Brown, who ends up catching the pass. Just horrible coaching all over the place. There was a tremendous breakdown from Rex Ryan about how when you saw Jaden Daniels kind of move out to his right and then circle back to his left to buy more time, a tremendous breakdown from Rex Ryan of all people about how the defensive line really should have shifted once he broke out to his right. They shouldn't have let him get back to his left, and that was another meltdown from the Bears defensively. So Eberflus says that they practice that 10 times a week. I simply don't believe that. I think it's maybe you practice it once or twice a week. Horrible coaching from and not to mention, we're talking all about this last play, Jason. The drive before, 2 drives before, they hand the ball off to an offensive lineman who had not taken a handoff all season, who immediately just throws it to a linebacker. This game was just it. The Bears asked to lose this game, and they got what they asked for.
Yeah, very, very well said. And look, is it just me though, or is Dan Quinn? Are they not unleashing Jaden Daniels fully? Like, they're so reliant, and I get that they're reliant on the running game. To me, I'd like to see them let the guy let Jaden Daniels play a little bit more. I want to see more Jaden Daniels because they nearly lost this game because of that approach to me. I'd rather see them get more aggressive with Jaden Daniels and using Jaden Daniels. I'm not saying him running all over the place and potentially getting hurt, but I want to see him throw the football more.
So, it's interesting. I think that there may be, and I know that the organization has changed over probably twice now in terms of staff and once in terms of ownership since this happened, but there's definitely, to me at least, a general fear with this kind of athletic rookie quarterback because they've seen this happen before and copious amounts of success. And what happened? They let him play out all the way and he tore his ACL year one and never came back the same. To your point, though, they only threw the ball 6 more times than they ran it this game. It feels like with a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, and I'm not saying they have dynamic weapons, but Zach Ertz has come into his own and looks like the old version of Zach Ertz with Jaden Daniels, and Terry McLaurin's a great receiver. They can throw the ball 42 times a game.
I just feel like sometimes they're playing it too safe with them. Ravens-Browns, an amazing finish there. Kudos to Jameis Winston. And look, we've been sitting here calling for it. Where's Jameis Winston? Where's Jameis Winston? He comes out there yesterday, wins the game late for them. And in typical Jameis Winston fashion, there were a couple of throws in this game that could have, gone one way or the other, or maybe should have gone to the other team and didn't. But I got to say this about Baltimore. And I knew they weren't great against the pass. I didn't know they were dead last in the league in terms of passing yards allowed. And at some point, if that doesn't improve, as much as we like to think of Baltimore as, potentially the team that challenges the Chiefs in the AFC, you've got to be able to defend the pass better than they have this year.
So this is just an interesting note I got to fit in here on Jameis Winston. It's from Jameis1of1 on Twitter. Since 2021, due to a torn ACL, broken back, and ruptured peroneal tendon, Jameis Winston has had just 9 healthy starts. In those 9 healthy starts, he's 7-2 with 20 total touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Jameis Winston is a starting quarterback in the NFL, whether we choose to admit it or not. He has gotten really good since coming off of injury. On the Ravens side of things, this seems like it could just be a blip on the radar, but their losses are the weirdest in the NFL this year.
Yeah, and again, defending against the pass. I mean, you got to be better than dead last in the league, in a league where there's teams that are willing to chuck it around. By the way, you think the Jets wouldn't love to have Jameis Winston right now? Just saying. We're going to come back. We'll get into the World Series. We got more football coming later on as well. Speaking of the Jets, don't go anywhere. Lots more to do. Coming up in 10 minutes, we get back to the NFL. 2 teams that I want to talk about and ask a simple question. Where do you go if you are these 2 organizations? I mean, just disastrous situations for 2 teams. We'll get into it. Because I'm looking for answers, and I don't even have any. Like, I was sitting around thinking about it last night. Yankees need to find answers, and in a hurry. They're down 2-0 back at Yankee Stadium for Monday night's Game 3, Yankees-Dodgers World Series. Dodgers taking games 1 and 2. If you haven't seen it by now, you've been living in a cave. Maybe you were traveling somewhere where there was no television, but there it is. Let's give people what they want. More Freddie. This was, I got to be honest. Game 1 on Friday night, I was at Caesars here in Vegas, and we were taking a friend out for one of the if you ever go to Vegas, by the way, you got to try the Bacchanal, which is Caesars Palace buffet. Phenomenal. Hats off to them. I didn't get anything for free. I'm just telling you, if you're gonna eat a buffet in Vegas, you got to try that one. I'm going to hit all of them eventually. This was my first really big one, other than the Palms, which was not very good. I'm sitting there at the table watching Yankees and Dodgers. Yankees take the lead. I'm pumped. I'm eating. Life is good. And then Freddie Freeman comes up right around the time I'm eating dessert. Freddie Freeman ruined the dessert. Thank you, Nestor Cortez. Let's just groove a fastball in at 93 on the inner half.
Well, Okay. All right. All right. In Nestor's defense, he grooved a fastball in at 92 on the inner half to Shohei Ohtani the pitch before and got incredibly lucky.
Got lucky.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. He made the same mistake twice and it worked once. But that was the craziest part of it all to me is that he got so lucky, more luck than any major league pitcher would ever ask to have against the greatest hitter on earth at the time in the World Series. And then he tested it immediately.
Sam,
what are you doing?
Sam, I don't even blame Nestor Cortez. I blame the manager. I say this all the time in sports.
Point.
Head coaches, managers, you have one job. Put your players in the best position to succeed. He did not do that being Aaron Boone. You've got Tim Hill, who's in the bullpen lefty. He's pitching to like a 1.4 ERA. And you bring in Nestor Cortez, who hasn't pitched in like a month and a half.
37 days. 37 days.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
In extra innings of the World Series.
I'm not going to lie.
On the road when your team had a chance to win.
I'm not going to lie. After game one, I said, I almost hope the Yankees get swept and fire Aaron Boone. That's the only hope. That's the only hope. This franchise cannot be managed by somebody more incompetent than Aaron frickin' Boone.
This is why I brought this up so frequently throughout the duration of the season and the postseason, Jason. And you'll remember last week before this series started, I said, any chance Aaron Boone gets fired after this, if anything happens? And you said he'd have to mess up in a colossal manner to get fired. This is it. He's doing it. You just went on the road and got embarrassed when you had a chance to win both games over the weekend. And you quite frankly managed your team out of one, and I could make the argument that you managed your team out of game two as well.
Let's ask the question. Let's ask the question though that I have seen some people pose when it comes to where this series is right now, and that is, what do you do with Aaron Judge? And some people have suggested, hey, do you drop him in the air? Do you pull an A-Rod? With Joe Torre dropping A-Rod in the lineup, and I think he dropped him to like 8th or something like that. Do you actually do it? And while the initial knee-jerk reaction to that question is always, God, no, you don't drop Aaron Judge in the lineup. I mean, what would Juan Soto think if he saw that? You got to take that into consideration. To me, if you watch that rally in the 9th inning in game 2, the hole was Aaron Judge. I mean, if Aaron Judge just finds a way to get on base, isn't chasing balls out of the zone, his chase rate has been terrible in this series. And in this postseason, maybe that 9th inning works out different. I don't know. Jose Trevino not swinging at the first pitch would help. But I don't know. I don't know what you do right now with this Aaron Judge situation. Everybody said, I see former players saying things like, man, fans better give him the biggest ovation ever because you've got Juan Soto sitting there watching. And if you're booing Aaron Judge in Game 3 of the World Series, how is that going to impact Juan Soto? Which I think is a very valid point.
It's a great point.
It is. It's a very valid point. I don't know. The
Yankees.
I'm at a loss right now.
You're very right about that. The Yankees are in a tough spot because what people need to remember is that all while competing for a World Series, they still need to be selling their best player on coming back because he's going to be a free agent after this season. Listen, the Yankees have an Aaron Judge problem as soon as the clock turns over to October 1st, and this is not a new phenomenon. There was a tweet that went around this weekend, and it's worth sharing. I don't know if you remember the 2018 ALDS when Aaron Judge leaves Fenway Park famously blasting New York, New York out of his boombox as he walks by the Red Sox locker room. Since that moment in the 2018 ALDS, 6+ years, folks, Aaron Judge has 23 hits in 152 postseason at-bats. He's hit in 151 postseason at-bats, He's hitting 152. 9 of those are for extra bases, 8 of them for homers. 16 RBI in 6 years, and 56 strikeouts. The New York Yankees have an Aaron Judge problem the second the calendar turns over to October. And I know that he's this great regular season player who sets all these records and yada, yada, yada. But the fact of the matter is he cannot perform to Yankee standards in the postseason. And when you're trying to sell a $500 million player in Juan Soto on a franchise for a decade plus, that is exactly what pushes him away when you don't have any repercussion for sustained failure on the biggest stage.
And now there's news that the Dodgers may actually make a play on Juan Soto if he's willing. If he's willing to come to the West Coast, which I don't know if he is. He just obviously spent some time there in San Diego with the Padres. So
if the Dodgers do that, and
it's going to be an uproar. It's going to be an uproar around. Going to be an uproar around baseball.
The commissioner will have to step in. I'm sorry. The commissioner has to step in. There has to be some sort of collective bargaining between the Players Association and the league. We got to do something. I'm serious. If the Dodgers win the World Series and immediately sign Juan Soto and have that entire team locked up for at least the next 3 years, like, we got to do something. That's not fair baseball.
I just wonder if Soto's going to want to play there in the shadow of Ohtani. You know, in New York, he could kind of share the stage with Judge. I don't know if anybody could share the stage with Ohtani. We're coming back with Bill Bender. Sports Wrap continues. I lied. Bill Bender's coming up in 10 minutes. My Sean McDermott-like clock management at work again. No, it's me and Sam Yarnell, not Bill Bender. Bill Bender will join me in 10 minutes. We'll do 20 minutes of college football with him. What's the matter? Save your words because your voice is struggling.
I believe it dates back to last season when we started referring to it as Sean McDermott-like clock management. Mm-hmm. But I think it's time after yesterday, Jason, that we alter that saying a little bit. It should be Aaron Rodgers-like clock management now after the way that game ended in New England.
We'll get to the Jets in a second. So I want to ask a question, and you can see it at the top of the screen. And I'm not being snarky. I'm not being mean. I'm not going after these guys. I just am asking the question, and I'm looking for an answer. Where do you go? Given the restraints of salary caps, the money they've got tied into Aaron Rodgers, the money that the Cowboys have tied into CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, where do you go if you are these two teams right now? One is 2-5, 2-6, whatever it is. One's 2-6. The other's 3-4. Start with the Cowboys, Sam. I mean, I don't know where you go right now if you're the Cowboys. Oh, they showed signs of late life late in that game yesterday. First of all, it's the 49ers playing to the score. And we saw that against the Ravens in Dallas several weeks back when the Cowboys made a run late and really there was no chance for them to win the game. I don't know where you go if you're the Cowboys. We'll get to the Niners for a second in just a minute, but the question is the Cowboys at 3-4. Where are you going?
In the short term, Jason, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you go home to your couch and you root real hard for the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night because the New York Giants are 1 win away from having the same amount of wins as the Dallas Cowboys through 8 weeks of the NFL season, which is hilarious. Absolutely. Hands down, maybe the funniest development in the NFL this year. It's close to rock bottom. So the Cowboys, I think, are in a little bit better of a position than the Jets, a team we'll talk about a little bit later. The main thing for the Cowboys to me is like you just got to get yourselves out of the spotlight. And I know that's so hard to say about the most popular team in the NFL, but like as long as they continue to perform the way they are and Jerry Jones continues to act the way he has all season long, it's going to be you're going to get to a point where you'll have a good draft pick, but you'll get Jim Kelly, where the draft pick will say, I just don't want to go there because of how that organization operates. And you know what? I can't really blame them. Like if the Cowboys drafted Travis Hunter tomorrow and Travis Hunter were like, I don't want to go work for Jerry Jones. I'll play another year in NCAAs. I'll go play in Canada for a year. I'll figure it out. The Dallas Cowboys have gotten to a point where it's almost like the lack of performance on the field doesn't matter as much as the constant lashing out from players, owners, management alike at people who simply don't deserve it for their own lack of performance. It's going to push people away. It's going to push their own fans away if they're not careful.
Yeah. I'm watching this situation play out. I think the ultimate mistake here in sort of doing an autopsy on how we are, where we are, all of that. I think the mistake was them succumbing to the demands of Dak Prescott. And I have nothing personal against Dak Prescott, but I got to say this. A lot of times when quarterbacks get to this point and it's contract time, in a lot of cases, you're not 100% sure what you have. When the Giants did the Daniel Jones deal, it was coming off a huge season, and they were still kind of like, when he's healthy, he's this, he's that, and they decided to give him, they kind of played it somewhere in the middle. They can get out of it after this year. It's a lot of money, but there were ways to get out of it. At the point the Cowboys signed Dak Prescott, you knew what Dak Prescott was, and that was a guy that's a good quarterback, statistically put up good numbers, but anybody, if you gave them truth serum, could have told you were not going to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott at quarterback. And I know a lot of people will say, well, if you had let him go, he would have walked to another team and somebody would have signed him willingly. Let them sign him willingly. Let them find out what you already know. The fear of somebody else signing somebody and then potentially working out there or not working out, whatever it may be, that can't be the reason that you make a franchise-altering decision to sign Dak Prescott that I think is going to haunt them for years. Move away from that for a second. Talk about the Jets. Because at 2-6, it's basically a lost season now. And you've got people talking about whether or not, Aaron Rodgers is likely to retire at the end of the year. You set the franchise back a ways. You gave up all this draft capital. You went and got Davante Adams. I mean, the Jets are dumpster fire beyond dumpster fire. You've got Aaron Rodgers talking about embracing the darkness. I mean, and all that shtick is great. I've said this a million times before, Sam, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. The shtick is fine when you're winning. The shtick gets old real fast when you're losing.
So I haven't looked into the NFL rules, and it is something I intend to do later today. And as the new league week begins on Tuesday, I'll have an update for you on the sports wrap. But I'm being completely and wholeheartedly serious, which is so weird for me to be about the New York Jets. But if they really want to have a chance at saving their organization for the next 3 to 5 years, they will trade away Davante Adams again. They will try to sell Aaron Rodgers wherever they can for however little they can to just get him off the roster. They need to sell every valuable piece of that team.
If it's not bolted to the floor, it's being sold.
Literally. And we're talking about superstars now too. Garrett Wilson, you can get way more in draft capital than he will be worth starting next year with whatever third-rate quarterback you're trotting out there. Whether it's 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers or otherwise, it's not going to be a good quarterback situation in New York next year. Robert Saleh, and hand up, I may have been wrong about this. Robert Saleh may have been the thing that was holding that whole organization together. Because, he left, and they have melted down even more than we thought they were capable of.
0-3.
That guy might be the best head coach candidate on the market right now, and we didn't even know it.
0-3, and 2 of them against opponents they were favored over.
It really is rock bottom.
Every time you think it can't get worse with this organization, it does. Watching Mike Greenberg melt down could be my favorite part of the whole thing.
It's sad. It's just, we've gotten to a point where it's just sad.
And there's no end in sight. If you're a Jets fan, there's no hope. Just hopeless. Very few franchises in all of professional sports can say that. Bill Bender will join us coming up, talk college football in a few minutes. We keep things moving on this Monday edition of the show. I have my segments backwards. Let's do some college football now. Bring in our friend Bill Bender. The Sporting News does a terrific job on college football. The banner above you today says, Bill Bender answers the tough questions on college football. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
By the way, I never say this to a guest, but I think I could say it to you because I think you'll understand. You look tired. You look exhausted right now. I mean,
is that the polite? You're tired, like, because I know what that's code for.
No. You look like you had a rough weekend.
Well,
you okay?
We had the late night, game, college football, and my daughter had a all-day lacrosse tournament in Canton yesterday, and I had to bounce back and write a little. I took it pretty late last night to get everything caught up for this week, but I assure you, no matter how tired I look, inside I feel great and excited about Week 10.
All right, Missouri and Alabama. It was a game we talked about last week because you were like, hey, there's no givens here. Alabama sure as hell made it look like a given.
Really did. And, Brady Cook being on again, off again didn't help. I thought they got back to what they do best when they're at their best, and that's running the football. 7.3 yards per carry, 271 yards rushing. Kind of took the pressure off Milroe. That was the kind of cookie-cutter blowout that you and I are accustomed to seeing with Alabama instead of what they've done the last 3 weeks. And their defense is starting to force turnovers. So they are at the top of the two-loss heap in terms of playoff contenders, and that should surprise just about nobody.
Yeah, and it feels like, and I don't know who I saw write it the other day. Somebody put it up on X. There's going to be a lot of good two-loss teams. And again, I know we've expanded the playoffs and that's great, but there's going to be a lot of debate at that two-loss point on the teams that get in and don't. I don't envy the selection committee on this.
No, but again, Alabama presents that case, and then you look at a team like Texas A&M beating LSU. LSU suddenly in that two-loss heap. Oregon gets knocked Oregon knocks Illinois to that two-loss heap. So, and there's going to be a lot more teams that join that pile as we get into November.
There's no way, not to interrupt you, but there's no way Alabama gets kept out with the win over Georgia, right? If they stay at 2 losses, there's no way they're kept out.
No, they're in. And one of the things we wrote about over the weekend is, so going into November last year in the 4-team format, we had 13 power conference teams with 1 loss or less. Remember, you were kind of DQ'd at 2 losses. This year, we have 24 power conferences teams with 2 losses or less, and Notre Dame. I always count them. So basically, we almost doubled the number of teams we should care about in November. And I don't know, Jason, what do you think? Are we going to care like we cared last year with double the amount of teams?
Well, somebody's going to care. I don't know if we will, but those teams, those fan bases of those teams are going to care. There's going to be 1 or 2 at the very least that I think we care about. I think there's the potential that you're going to get 1 or 2 that we're going to be sitting here on that following Monday here on SportsWrap with you, sitting here going, I don't know, I'm sure there will be some of that. But also at the same time, the argument, just like with the NCAA men's basketball tournament, is there's 68 teams. If you're on the bubble between being Team 68 and Team 69, did you really belong in the first place?
Yeah, we're going to have less sympathy unless you're a small school like we did last year with Indiana State.
Yeah.
Or we'll conjure up a case for St. John's like we did last year. Right. But I think in football there will be less sympathy because you might have 2 or 3 losses. And, how could we leave Ole Miss out? Well, don't lose to Kentucky. Maybe that's the reason why. Things like that are going to pop up. And, okay, I'll give you an early candidate for a sympathetic figure. That'd be Indiana. Let's say they lose – you
already got them losing. They haven't even lost a game yet. You already got them losing, see?
Well, if they lose in Columbus and they're 11, okay, I've asked people this all the time. What if the last spot goes to, and it's pretty close to this right now, 11-1 Indiana gets boat raced at Ohio State, Alabama with their 2 losses. You and I both know what they should do versus what they will do. And that's still going to be very real in November.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Oregon just continues to roll. They beat a top 25 opponent, made it look easy. I got a question on Oregon, but first give me on Illinois. But give me your thoughts on Oregon, who just continues to roll right now.
Yeah, their defense looks good. Their defense is looking good. They're not.
It's a weird thing to say about an Oregon team, by the way.
Right, they knocked out Illinois with their defense. And the big play offense is still there with Dylan Gabriel, who's kind of creeping up the Heisman board. A chance to show it this weekend against Michigan, though, to put that final nail in Michigan's season. I do think the Wolverines, this is a kitchen sink for them at home. Defense is still pretty good. Miserable play at quarterback continues. But Davis Warren was a little bit better in the second half against Michigan State. So call me crazy, which is fine. It's better than saying I look tired, but I think they're going to hang around. I think Michigan's going to hang around in that game and make it interesting because they're pretty good up front.
Real quick, I only got about a minute left in this segment. On Missouri, just to go back to them for a second, you think Eli Drinkwitz is coaching somewhere else next year?
I have a feeling, yes. Maybe but the place I thought was Florida. So I don't know that Florida's open right now. And some of that will be hinge on how the Gators look against Georgia. If they get blown out this weekend, that talk kind of heats up. If they keep it close, they don't.
And Mizzou, no chance to make the playoffs? Does the loss this weekend?
Of those 2-loss SEC teams, I think they have the least chance because, one, their schedule's soft, and two, you and I have watched them get blown out twice in the last 4 weeks.
We have. I got a couple more questions I want to ask Bill, so we're going to nail him to the chair. We're going to give him some Viber, and we're going to wake him up because apparently I think he looks tired. We'll get to Notre Dame. I got to talk to him about and Colorado, because Colorado's on the fringe of being a top 25 team. They could be in the Big 12 title game. They're worth talking about. We'll do it next on SportsWrap. Let's take it to segment 5 on this Monday edition of the show. Typically, we would do something to consider here, but instead, we're talking to Bill Bender. We'll consider college football with him. Talk to me about Notre Dame. After that early season loss, that you just felt like doomed them until we kind of understood and sort of recalculated the landscape of college football and how 2 losses is viewed versus 1 loss and all of that. All of a sudden, Notre Dame is rolling.
Yeah, they dominated on the ground against Navy. They found something with that rushing attack with Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard, and it helped that Navy helped them with 6 turnovers and the fumbles and everything that happened there. So, yeah, the Irish are probably operating on it. They still got to win out. They don't have a monumental game. It's wild to think that their most monumental game at the end of the season here is going to be Army. 100 years after their legendary game in 1924 at the Polo Grounds. So, yeah, I think they're in really good shape. I have them in right now in that 10 to 11 seed range. And, keep in mind, they have a victory head-to-head against the only SEC team that hasn't lost in conference play. And they can milk that all November.
Yeah, and way to bounce back. Sometimes teams suffer that loss early in the year and they go into the tank. And we can point to a couple of teams that's happened to this season. That hasn't been the case with Notre Dame. Give me a thought on Colorado here. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. Claim privilege here, a little bit of time. I went after Joel Klatt this weekend. Because Joel Klatt was like, "Oh, where are all the haters on Colorado now? They're 6-2. They're got a chance to be on the top 25 in this week or next. They could be in the Big 12 title game." And I'm just sitting there going, first of all, Joel Klatt, stop being a sycophantic suck up. We know that you got Dion on your show, and your syndicated show, and he talked to you, and so now you got to be nice because you want to keep getting access, because that's the dirty little secret in this industry, is that everybody just craves access, even if it means selling their soul. They beat Cincinnati. Great. Here's my problem with Colorado. They haven't beaten anybody of note. They got waxed by Nebraska. They barely beat North Dakota State. They lost to Kansas State. I get the fact that they're 6-2, but let's stop with the flowery rhetoric towards Dion and the turnaround is complete and all of this. I love Shedeur Sanders. I love Travis Hunter. Great. But not all 6-2s are built the same way, Bill Bender.
No, I agree. And I think with Colorado in this case, they haven't really beat anybody, but they are playing well. What makes them intriguing is they do have 2 Heisman candidates. I saw Dion took every opportunity to promote Shedeur. Travis Hunter's legit as a Heisman candidate, but they haven't played that team, and they might not play that team in November, looking at their schedule. I mean, you're looking at Utah. That's a game that could sneak up and bite them. I know Utah's not playing well. Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State, we had that circled as an L before the season. Now we don't. So a 10-2 Colorado team is entirely possible coming out of the bye week. They will be insufferable.
Let me tell you something. That fan base and those guys, they will be insufferable if they are 10-2, regardless of who they've beaten.
Well, let me ask you this: would you kind of want to see it in the first round?
Just so they can get their doors blown off? Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Give me them in the first round just getting destroyed. Absolutely.
You would profile to play either Texas, somebody like Texas, Georgia loser, Ohio State, Oregon loser. Or imagine that would be, there's the dream scenario. You get Oregon versus Colorado in the playoff this time. And Dan Lanning, and then we force the teams to record their pregame speeches simultaneously so everybody can lose their mind. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
See, I'm promoting this. I'm doing the CFP's work for them right now.
I'm telling you, man. Just give me Oregon. Yeah. You know what? That's the scenario by which I'd like to see them make the playoffs. It was I was like, my God, let's go crazy about Colorado being bowl eligible at 6-2. UConn's 5-3 this year. I mean, really, Jim Moore Jr. is UConn at 5-3. They haven't played anybody. They beat Rice this weekend, but I mean, UConn's 5-3. So I mean, UConn's going to make a bowl game this year. So I don't want to hear about how bowl eligible matters for anything, Bill.
Right, and it is that's so secondary or maybe even third place in my priority list when you look and evaluate teams. The 2-loss thing team is very real to me. And as I mentioned, as we get into November, the fact that you and I just talked about Colorado, or we're going to talk about Indiana, or some of these long shot 2-loss teams Arizona State still has hope in November. We couldn't say that last year, and that's what makes it a little bit interesting for me as we get into it.
Let's look ahead a little bit before we let you go. Ohio State, Penn State this weekend. Both of these teams have had weird seasons in terms of letting teams hang around, bad teams hang around. Who wins and why?
I still got Ohio State. I'm in the mode of Penn State has to prove it. When are you going to do it? The Drew Aller injury worries me that he won't play. And I like Bo Prabula. He's played a lot of football, but I think what he does, Ohio State can stop. They can handle a mobile quarterback because of their front seven. They need to beat Ohio State. You have to be able to throw down the field. And I think Drew Aller would give Penn State more of a chance to do that. That said, very concerned about Ohio State's offensive line in this matchup. They did not play well against Nebraska. They did not run the football well. I'm looking for a classic here, but James Franklin is 1-9 against Ohio State. 1-9. And they probably shouldn't have won the one if Urban Meyer doesn't kick a field goal. So to me, I use the line, wake me up when Ohio State loses this one. I suppose it could happen, but I'll roll with the Buckeyes.
And by the way, James Franklin and Penn State, you got to do a better job answering questions when 2 of your players are accused of rape. I mean, you got to do a better job than that.
Such an easy thing to do, too. Just say, I can't comment on that right now.
So bad, walking off and then walking back. I mean, you can't have a worse look. You just can't.
Not with a serious case like that.
No,
absolutely not.
I agree. Bill Bender does terrific work for the Sporting News. Check out his college football and NFL stuff there. I always appreciate you, my friend. Have a wonderful week.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Just about time to put the wraps on this Monday edition of the show. Before we do, a reminder, Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast. Chang, cha-chang. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Amazon. We're on all of them. You can listen to us on your ride into work. You can watch us during lunch if you're checking out the Spotify podcast. Without any further delay, Sam Yardell, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Tyler Reddick, your winner at the Homestead race, NASCAR's playoffs yesterday. Kudos to Tino Patino, who I decided to tail. I said for the first time I would actually tail. Tyler Reddick. I said I would actually tail him on his picks. It'll come. Don't worry. It's Monday. And I did. And Reddick passes Ryan Blaney late to get the win. And our guy Tino Patino, man, the guy's picking NASCAR winners at a very high rate. If you are not following him and you're not watching our Friday NASCAR segments, that's on you because the guy picks winners. That's just what he does. And kudos to Sam because he introduced me. The reason Tino Patino is on this show is because before we started doing this show for a TV audience, the man on the screen right there, the great Sam Yarnell, introduced me to Tino Patino, and he's been on the show ever since. So thank you, Sam.
He's the best. I love the kid.
Yep, he does fantastic work. LeBron James, odds and ends, it should be nearing the end of his career, but 22 years in, the guy goes off for a triple-double, has a ridiculous fourth quarter in a win over the Kings, who couldn't stop a runny nose. My God. You've had a few years now. Can you do something with the defense in Sacramento? Just something. Something that makes it look, at least pretend you're playing defense. Even that being said, LeBron, just out of this world. And I keep telling people, appreciate it, soak it in, enjoy it. You're not going to see it forever. Also, one other thing on LeBron. I think he said this the game before this one where he went off for the triple-double. He's aiming to play in every single... There's not going to be any planned rest nights for LeBron James. His goal is to play in every single game this year. Of all the things he's done, if 22 years into his career, he finds a way to play 82 games, which I don't think will happen. I would take the no if we were betting it, no matter what the juice is on it. That would be the most amazing thing ever, Sam.
Outside of LeBron James, there's one player in NBA history that made it to their 22nd season. Their season high that year was 17 points.
Was it Kareem?
In the first 2 minutes and 59 seconds of their most recent game, LeBron James had 16 points in his 22nd season. You will never, ever, ever, ever see something done like this again across sport. The domination over the course of 2.5 decades in such a rigorous sport where we do not see athletes last this long is truly something to behold, and we all need to remember that we are lucky, just like the old Nike shirt said, we're lucky we got to witness.
I agree. Was Kareem the player?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I didn't go back and look.
I
did not go back and...
Other than Kareem, I can't think of
I would assume it was Kareem because he's the only one who played that long.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Moses Malone.
Did Wilt play that long?
I don't think he played that long. I don't think he played 22.
Yeah, I don't think he played 22. No. 22 seasons is such a long time.
Yeah, now I'm kind of curious to know. Christy Sides, odds and ends, the end for her in Indiana as head coach of the Fever. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not surprised. I don't think she did a terrible job. That team, after a rough start, really improved as the season went along, but she finds herself out of a job. Half of the WNBA's teams are without head coaches right now. You want to talk about an endangered species list? It's WNBA head coach. Congratulations.
No, you're right.
The WNBA has made it. They've officially made it because you've got controversy surrounding the finals. You've got a coach all upset, and you're firing head coaches left and right because now it matters. You're firing
a head coach, Jason, that took a team that was collectively over the past 2 seasons leading into this year the worst in the WNBA. Over the last 2 years, they were the worst team in the WNBA. She turned them around with one player and took them to the playoffs and lost her job over it. Bonkers.
Stephanie White, rumored to be the candidate to take over, the former head coach of the Phoenix Mercury. Sam Yarnell, before we go, some quick picks when it comes to the Monday Night Football game tonight. We've got the Giants plus 5.5 on the road against the Steelers. Moneyline Giants plus 225, Steelers minus 275. The total is 36.5. I hear Admiral Akbar somewhere going, "It's a trap."
Yeah. I mean, I don't trust the Steelers to win this. Give me the Giants with the points. I like the under. Really? I don't like either side or total in this game. But my best bet is Daniel Jones to throw an interception. The Pittsburgh defense is good, and I think Jones is going to have to throw the ball a lot with a backfield in New York that doesn't produce a ton. I'll lay the minus 122 on Daniel Jones to throw a pick. But sides-wise, yeah, I'd probably take the Giants, and I'd probably go under 36.5.
It feels like a trap. But I feel like Steelers minus 5.5 is a lock. I feel like minus 5.5 on the Steelers and under 36.5. Look at the shock on Sam's face.
I'm riding with Jason's team. That's all I'll say.
It's like Bizarro World. What's going on here? Thank you to Bill Bender. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell, for gutting it out. We'll see you all back here on Tuesday for more Sports Wrap.